Hello everyone, thank you so much for joining us on Warrior Chat. I'm Wayne McCullough. Today's a very, very special day in the culture and community for Southern York County School District. It is commencement day for Susquehannock High School. And every year for the last 9 years, the Susquehannock High School Alumni Association has voted and selected a distinguished alumni from our high school, and it's really just a very well respected man that we have who's a former teacher, a former administrator here at Southern York County School District, Mr. Darryl Engler, who is our distinguished alumni for this class of 2013. I got to tell you this, when Darryl was nominated, when Mr. Engler, I should say, because Mr. Engler was a math teacher of mine in Southern Middle School, when Mr. Engler was nominated for this honor, all of the Alumni Association said, wow, he's the right guy. So he is the right guy. We'll talk about Darryl as we go on. But congratulations, Mr. Engler. It's a pleasure. Thank you. It really is a pleasure and an honor.
Thank you. It's good being here.
Good. Also with us today is another man I have great regard for, great respect, Mr. Dale Kagi. Mr. Kagi, many of you know, has been our former business administrator and board secretary for 25 years here at Southern York County School District. Still active in the life of the school district as formerly our executive director of our foundation, and much of our culture we owe to and credit to Mr. Kagi for over the years, and certainly the outstanding financial condition of the school district, we certainly owe that to you, Mr. Kagi.
Well, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you for
so
your
it's good
kind
to have
words.
you here also. Yep. So it's nice to have Mr. Engler here and
Thank you both.
as our distinguished alumni. So I'll start off, and then we're kind of going to co-team here and co-host the show, Mr. Kagi and I. And probably, Mr. Kagi, you've worked with Mr. Engler for many, many years, so it's appropriate in that regard that you're here also. But first of all, Mr. Engler, again, joining an esteemed group of people who have now been recognized as a distinguished alumni. Let's back up to your high school career and tell folks a little bit about things you were involved with in high school and kind of what that meant to you.
Oh my goodness. I began the school year here in 1959 as a student. Susquehannock at the time was 6 grades, 7 through 12. And so I spent my entire 6 years here at the high school and did almost every musical organization that was there. I took every math class that was there. And so those two things helped to build both sides of my brain. The left side for my math and science abilities, computer science, programming, etc. And the right side of my brain was cultured by the music programs, band, orchestra, special bands that were performing and so forth.
Well, Darryl, I had the pleasure of writing the alumni profile for a magazine many years ago. And I remember talking to you here on Warrior Chat whenever we did it some time ago. And the one thing that I do remember is you used the term hodgepodge to describe your career here at Susquehannock. Can you elaborate on that? Why do you use that word hodgepodge?
Because it was a career that I couldn't have planned what exactly happened over 30 years that I was here as a teacher. I, in fact, was in my senior year of college doing student teaching. I went to Ursinus College, and the school called up, and it was the first year that the middle school was opened. And they said they were in need of a teacher in the middle of the year, in the first year. And I happened to be getting out right after Christmas that year. So they called me and asked me if I would come for an interview, which I did. And I was offered the job of a math teacher in high school on the spot and accepted it. And so they called me, I didn't call them, and I didn't plan to come back here. I had no idea where I would eventually get a teaching job. Everything along the line through those years seemed to happen the same way, as a hodgepodge of situations that came up, and I would react to them. The one I might have told you before, after that first 6 months of teaching, the following fall we would start a new school year, and the head of the math department was supposed to give a speech to the back to school night when all the parents came in. And he didn't want to give the speech. So he says, you give the speech. I go, well, I can't give the speech. Let the department head take care of that. Let's talk to Gerald Miller. You're the department head. So after 6 months of teaching, I became the head of the math department. And it went on and on and on for there. Hodgepodge, something would come up and I was chosen or I volunteered to do it. Thing happened with the computer systems, and when we were in need of a full-time person in the administration, I volunteered and was accepted to do that. So it was a hodgepodge.
Let's go back to your musical career, because
Okay.
I think you had the unique distinction of not only being, as you tell us, every single musical group there was. That would include the band, the orchestra, the chorus.
Not the choir. I auditioned one summer for the choir and made the choir, which was Mel Bashank's choir. And then I couldn't schedule it in the fall because I had to take personal typing, which I value to this day because it's why I can type 120 words a minute, and I use that every day in my job working with computers. So not the choir, but pretty much everything else, all the instrumental groups that were there.
And you also had the distinction of being active in the musical program as a staff person by directing the musical.
Yes.
And playing in the orchestra and so forth. So
Yes.
I think our alumni would be interested in your perspective of how the music program has evolved, just from your standpoint, not only as a participant, but as a staff person viewing it and as a staff person being involved in it.
Well, when I was a student at Susquehannock, we didn't do musicals. We did one play a year in the fall for only seniors, and one play in the spring for only juniors. No music, just a straight play. And so over the years, the musical idea came along, and I helped Jeff Shuck with the musical. I helped Mr. Quigley when he came in and did the musical. When the high school was being built, the new auditorium, in 1987, I believe you might remember, there was a windstorm, and the steel work was blown down. And they were going to start at that end and move across and go down through the classroom end and end down at the new gymnasium. And the way the equipment was set up, they couldn't stop and wait for new steel to be ordered, so they continued on down, finished the gym, and then came back at the end of the year and redid the auditorium. So the auditorium was not available during the normal April spot when you would do a musical. But it was available on Memorial Day weekend when a lot of the students approached me, would I help them get a musical together, and so we did put on a musical that year. One night only, I believe it was Memorial Day weekend. Michael Walker was involved with that, and a few of the students, Eric Paulus, and we did put on a musical. And then the next 3 years after that, I also helped with the musical as a musical director and directed the pit orchestra.
I always felt fortunate. I was a student of yours in math class in Southern Middle School, and I don't mind saying you were one of those teachers who could be firm and have high expectations but still be loved by the students because you made it fun.
Well, thank you.
That was your personality, and so we had fun in class, we learned a lot in class at the same time, but then I had the unique experience, and Dale, I haven't even talked to you about this, but you'll make sense of it once I say it. But in high school, probably when I was in 9th grade, I started working summers for Irving Rappold, who was the local general contractor.
Right.
And Mr. Engler and Mr. Benchoff, who was a former band teacher, music teacher, band teacher, here also worked those summers. So we got to know each other outside of that classroom also, which a lot of students worked also for Mr. Rappold. Yes. So you also had that influence for students getting to know you outside the classroom, which I think was unique. And I bet there were dozens of students who probably would call the time working summers with Mr. Rappold as much as they would remember that time in the classroom. There was one time I particularly remember. We were on some roof somewhere in Maryland.
We're always on a roof.
True. And a couple stories up, and taking the shingles up the rickety ladder was not something any of us really desired to do. But I think Mr. Engler spent most of the day getting some elevator attached to a ladder working so we could mechanically get the shingles up on the roof. Okay. And I remember Mr. Rappold coming by halfway through the day seeing there's no shingles put on the roof.
I think we had an electric motor too. We didn't even have to pull the ropes.
But that was your engineering background there.
Darryl, The Distinguished Alumni Award focuses on accomplishments after your high school career. You had a very distinguished high school career, as we know. But after you graduated, you get to Susquehannock. You're suddenly thrust into being a math teacher. You're the head of the department. When I got to know you was when we tried to introduce, did introduce technology into the school district. It was, remember, I think you brought in the first TRS-80.
Yes, that was our first computer in the district.
The first TRS-80, and I do remember that we had a strategic planning meeting, and we decided that we wanted to make Southern York County School District on the cutting edge of technology. We wanted to catch up with all the other school districts, and we wanted to be the #1 school district in technology in Pennsylvania. And we gave you $25,000 at the time.
That's correct.
To do that. Give us some perspective from that time to where we are now, because right now we are the cutting edge premier technology school district in Pennsylvania, I believe, and I also believe that you're the person that got us there. Give us a little bit about the story about that evolution.
I got the first computer in the district in the middle school after several years of being denied. It was a TRS-80, which was state of the art at the time. It was either TRS-80 or an Apple II. So we had a TRS-80, one computer in the entire middle school, and I immediately tried to show everybody involved, students and faculty, what it was and how this could help everybody. The following year, there were a few IBM computers acquired by the business department at the high school through some grants, some business grants, and they were supposed to do something with them. They weren't sure what. And I talked to the superintendent, seeing a need to have a plan in place before everybody and his brother and sister had a computer in their classroom, and who knows what was happening with them. So in 1983, we formed a computer advisory committee with volunteer teachers from all grade levels, a few administrators, and some community members. And we met, I believe it was every week, once a week, like on a Monday night from January through April, and developed an entire plan. It was a 5-year plan, what we were going to do with $25,000 that the board had allocated us.
That's true, $25,000.
And we had a 5-year plan. The idea was to start in the middle school, because I volunteered to actually write curriculum and teach a computer course to middle school students, and then the following years expand in both directions, going back toward elementary and going to the high school. We finished the 5-year plan the first year. We had all the things in place that we had planned to do in 5 years. We had it in place in 1 year. Wow. And so we were continually given $25,000 a year to add on to it, and so we did. Things sort of leveled off in the end of the 80s, and by 1993 there was no more focus to the technology program. And other pieces of equipment were appearing, like video cameras and things like that, that didn't exactly fit into the computer guidelines that we had written in 1983. So we again formed the committee of staff members, board members, and community, and met again, not quite as often, but in 1993 we decided to write a 5-year plan and make it an ongoing 5-year plan, where you would implement the first year and then add another year on to the end, and thereby focusing who gets new equipment, which labs are replaced, what year, and that sort of thing. And I believe the budget was increased.
It was increased a little bit from the 25.
And that was responsible because we were supported by board members and community members. It's not just something that I wanted to do.
Well, you did it all. I remember you taking your shirt off and then your T-shirt.
Yeah, that's right.
Pulling coaxial cable through the ceilings of the high school in order to get, get a network built.
Yeah, I did. So the one thing I did want to mention about 1993 then, we became the first school in Pennsylvania and the 5th school in the entire country to put our presence up on the internet. At the time, there was no World Wide Web. It was a Gopher server. Gopher was invented out of the University of Minnesota. The University of Minnesota is the Golden Gophers. So their computer science department invented this concept of Gopher. It was all text-based. There were no graphics. And you connected your computer to the internet, and we started putting up board agendas and board minutes and announcements and newsletters of the school in text format in 1993, and we were the absolutely first school in Pennsylvania and the 5th in the country to do that in 93.
You know, I got to say this because both you guys, Mr. Engler and Mr. Kagi, deserve the credit for where we are. Mr. Engler, like I said, developed the plan, physically took his shirt off when he needed to and crawled up on the ladder and pulled cable. Mr. Kagi made sure financing was there, but you know, a website now that's won 2 statewide awards the last couple of years, but your plan starting it, your vision continued, and even after Mr. Engler left, still is what is the common thread to drive that thing. It's amazing. I mean, you think about it, you know, and you're right, Mr. Kagi, 2 years
happy to
ago,
see.
yeah, the school district wanted a statewide award for outstanding technology. But you two guys, you know, both of you, deserve the credit for it, the foundation of it.
Thank you.
That's amazing it is amazing when you think about it. We got them both in the same room right now. Yeah.
Darryl, outside your career in the school district, one of the things that was mentioned in the nomination process that led you to this award was also your activities in the community. Can we talk a little bit about that? Tell us what you did outside of school to get your name known in the service that you provided to various organizations.
Well, most of those were musical in nature, because there's not much role for a math consultant in Glen Rock. And so most of them were musical. I've played the organ in all the churches in Glen Rock, Railroad, substitute now in various churches around the community, York, New Freedom, different things. Even though I'm retired as a full-time organist, I did that. I joined the Glen Rock Carolers as a singer in 1971, and haphazardly, I became the director of the organization. One time, the director wanted to know if I would be willing to be put on the ballot as the assistant director. And what do I have to do? Oh, nothing. You don't do anything. Oh, okay, I can handle that. So that following Christmas, I was elected as assistant director, and I did absolutely nothing for 2, 3, 4, 5 years. I don't know how many years, because I didn't do anything. And one summer in August, he walks up to my front door with the briefcase of Carolers materials and says, "You're the director." I go, "What?" He says, "Well, I'm moving to North Carolina and won't be back at Christmas time, so you're the director." So I accidentally became the director in 1984, and I've been the director ever since.
I remember you telling me a similar story about how you got to be the director of the White Rose Chorus.
Very similar.
Pretty much the same way. You
Very
just
similar.
showed up one night.
It was all haphazard. So my entire career, I see an opportunity and I put myself in the right place or have my hand up in the air.
I think more of the latter. First of all, you had the skill set to do it. You had the personality and that skill set to work well with people. So I don't know that you just put your hand up in the air, but the fact that you're a hard worker and a great work ethic and a great person, good things happen.
I appreciate that.
Well, let me explore just one comment that you made that I found fascinating, and I never really thought about it until you said it. And that is, typically you're thinking musical people, right brain, technical left brain, and it's very, very rare that you find the combination of the two. Is that a fair assessment, or is there really a direct relationship between mathematics, say, and music? Is there a correlation there, or is it just that you're...
Yes, I find it, in my opinion, at least in my case, to be a one-way direction. Namely, the math people are good in music. It's not often that you pick an average musician out of a group, whether it be a choir, and give them a spreadsheet of formulas to figure out for you. But the other way, I play all my music mathematically. If I don't understand the way it's put together and it's structured, I can't play it. So I told you before, I learned to play a lot of instruments by myself. The only instrument I took lessons on was French horn, which was in elementary and high school, and then learned all the other instruments by figuring out how they were supposed to work, and then mathematically learning the fingerings and so forth. So one direction only from my left, which is the math side, to the music side.
When I know that you've had some musical training, you'll understand this. Darryl told me that the reason that he never taught piano was because he never really learned how to use the right fingerings.
I never had a piano lesson. I never had an organ lesson.
And if you heard him play, you just couldn't believe it.
No,
but
absolutely.
the fact that
He has.
I heard
I've
him
been
play.
substituting
Yeah.
at Wayne's Church, and rumor has it that I might need to do it again sometime, maybe at the end of my summer.
Yeah, no, I
So-
think if we could hire you full-time, we
Well,
would.
I'm a little old for that. But
Okay.
I like my freedom. I spend a lot of time in Florida, and right now I'm playing with the Disney Orchestra in the summertime, at least till the end of July. And so I need to stay down there until the end of July. But maybe I'll see you again in August.
Well, let's talk about that a little bit, Darryl. Both your wife, Pat,
Yes.
and your daughter, Lori, are both graduates of Susquehanna.
Yes, that's correct.
Tell us what Lori's done with herself, what Pat did after graduation.
Well, my wife graduated in '64 and I in '65, and we dated during high school. And I went away to college. She got a job in New York and waited for me, and we got married in 1968, in the middle of the year. So in 1 week, I finished my school at Ursinus, got married, and began my first teaching job at the middle school.
Did you have
It
a
was
honeymoon
rather-
in there somewhere, though?
Not exactly.
Oh, okay.
She had the Hong Kong flu at the time.
Oh,
so she
my.
was quite sick and
Uh-huh.
doped up for our wedding, but we took a honeymoon then the next summer. Went on a nice trip. But, so I knew it's my high school sweetheart, and we've been together for 46 years now. And my daughter, Lori, graduated from Susquehanna in '92 and went to Ursinus, the same place I went, because she narrowed down the list of her qualifications, what she wanted to do, and it ended up being Ursinus. I didn't say, you have to go to Ursinus because I did. And I think it's interesting that I graduated from Ursinus in '69 and she graduated in '96. So there's a
some
symmetry
mathematical
there. It's a little
relationship.
mathematical symmetry there.
Right.
Which only you would see.
But I did work all 4 years that she was in high school musicals as the musical director. Not just because she was there, but I did after that also, but I was musical director all 4 years she was there.
Now, one of the things, you have a few minutes to speak to our graduates, so there's never enough time to say everything you'd like to say. So maybe without spilling the beans and saying what you want to say, maybe tell us what you'd like to say that there's just not enough time to say.
Well, you called me, I believe it was January, and offered me this honor, and I am truly honored, and I want to thank the committee, you, Dale, everybody. And right away, you said I have to give a speech. Dale warned me I have to give a speech at graduation. I said, well, what should I say? Anything. And it seemed to me that this is the first time in my life that I was asked to speak on no subject. I've taught school for 30 years. I taught graduate classes at Wilkes University for over 25 years. And given a topic, I can spend hours and hours talking about that topic. I've been with the Glen Rock Carolers since 1971, and I can talk for hours and hours on the Glen Rock Carolers. But never have I been asked to give a speech on nothing.
Right.
And so I asked people that found out, I hear you're speaking at commencement. I said, what do you want me to say? And pretty much had two suggestions. The one was keep it short, and the other one was be sure to tell them that nothing's fair.
Absolutely.
So from former students, keep it short, tell them that nothing's fair. So being a math person, I wanted to look at the class of 2013 and figure out what I could say that was unique to the class of 2013. So I discovered that 2013 is the product of three prime numbers. 3 times 11 times 61.
Okay.
So I decided...
I got to think about that for a minute.
You can check it out later. So I decided to speak on 3 subjects, math, history, and philosophy, for 11 minutes, all the time focusing on the number 61 and how it relates to the class of 2013. Now, I don't mean 61 as in atomic number 61, promethium. I have nothing to say about that. Or 61 is the international direct dial call to Australia. Or, for you two guys especially, Roger Maris's 61 home runs in 1960.
Now that I knew. I did know that.
I will not mention that.
First thing we
I will
got.
not mention that tonight. Or my favorite, as how it relates to the class of 13, although I won't say this tonight. Some of the first 13 digits of pi is 61. So 61 kept coming up all along. And so what I decided to do is to compare the class of 2013 to the other 61 graduating classes of Susquehanna.
Wow.
From 1952 to 2012. There were 61 graduating classes.
True.
So what I plan to do, without telling him all of this, is compare the class of 2013 to the other 61 classes. Thank you for asking.
Amazing. And the full text of his speech will be available on YouTube, will it not? On our
will be,
YouTube
it
channel?
will be, yeah.
Because we are
Well, I
recording
hope
that
not
and
the
televising.
text,
I'm gonna have to
because
listen to that about 8
there's
times.
nothing in my pocket, so you'll have to get a
Wow.
you'll have to get a court reporter to get
You can
the
see
text.
why we had fun in class, though.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah. You know, speaking of in class, Darryl, we only have a few minutes left, and I did want to get this question in, because I do interview alumni for the Alumni newsletter, and I get a chance to talk to lots of alumni, probably 50 or 60 of them so far in articles that we've done. And one of the questions that I always ask is, what teacher did you have that made an impact on your life? And I can tell you, it's amazing over the years, there's certain names that keep recycling in my various interviews, Mrs. Toman being one, and you being one. So let me ask you that question. Teachers that you had that really had a major impact in not only your life's direction, but in your life's success.
All the math and science department teachers that I've had, I would copy from in my teaching career. I would find myself doing exactly what that teacher did to me. And so I was patterning my teaching after all these teachers. I can't name one of their names right now because there were a lot of them, pretty much all of them. Some of them I would do things exactly the opposite of what they did, because I noticed that it had no effect on the people sitting on either side of me. But some of them I would do exactly what they did. So all the math and science people, I would say, were my mentors, and I learned a lot from my teaching career. The person that I mentioned before, without mentioning his name, was the most beneficial in my computing career, and that's my 9th grade typing teacher. That was Darryl, who had your job.
Yep.
2 people before you.
Yes.
He was the business administrator, and he taught us typing without looking at the keys. And I didn't think that was worthwhile in 9th grade because we had no computers. They were manual typewriters, you know, the kind that you go like this and throw the, not even electric.
Right.
But I did it because I was supposed to. My mother was a secretary and thought that would be important for me to know how to type. And then when computers came along, I noticed the keyboard was the same, and away I go. So in my job, all the jobs, teaching job, administrative job, computer, programming, etc., typing 120 words a minute was a big, big help. So I would credit Gerald Treon for that.
Well, that explains when I started working here and I'd have a problem. Mr. Engler would come up and he'd go,
Yeah, that's
and then you say, what did he just do?
Yeah.
You know, you had
Yeah.
no idea what just happened.
and that's how you would describe Darryl's typing. Just exactly. It was amazing. Do you use the right fingers though?
Yes.
There, you do. Okay.
I do. My mother is responsible for that. My mother was a secretary, and when she insisted that I take typing, and that's the reason that I could not take the choral program, because my schedule was full. I had band, I had orchestra, I had typing, and there was no elective left to put choir in. She said, at the time I was typing 50 words a minute with 3 or 4 or 5 fingers like this, jumping all over the place. And she said, well, just for 2 weeks, do what the teacher says. Just use the right fingers just for 2 weeks, and then if that doesn't work out, then you can go back to your old way. But don't use your regular way, just for 2 weeks. And so after 2 weeks, I discovered that the real fingers work a lot better than 3 or 4 I was using.
Yeah. Real quick, you've been a lifelong resident of Glen Rock.
Not lifelong. I
Well,
moved
true.
to Glen Rock in 1957 when I was 10 years old.
True.
So I began, my dad was the minister at the church in Glen Rock, and we came right from seminary, Lancaster Seminary, and moved to Glen Rock in 1957. So I spent 5th grade, 6th grade at Glen Rock Elementary,
And
then all 6 years at the high school.
And as director for the Glen Rock Carolers now, the opportunity to walk the streets every Christmas Eve
Yes.
has to be special for
Yes,
you.
very special.
Can you describe that a little bit?
Well, the Glen Rock Carolers have been in existence since 1848, so this will be 166 years that the Glen Rock Carolers go out at midnight on Christmas Eve, entering Christmas Day, and walk all the streets of town sing the old English carols the way they sang them in 1848. And I've been with the group since 71 and their director since 1984. We've been to England 2 times to sing on the Festival of Village Carols in Sheffield, and I've led them both times to that.
Dale, would you agree? There's probably not a better person that could be selected for a Distinguished Alumni.
I would agree with that, and Darryl, as a personal friend as well as a colleague over the years, I want to extend my congratulations to you
I
for this.
appreciate it.
Well
Yeah,
deserved.
Thank you, Wayne.
Yeah, when you talk about people who have served the school, Susquehanna High School, but in this case, the entire school district, generations of young people, but also who have served the community, which is the requirement for people who are nominated to be our Distinguished Alumni. Absolutely, Darryl Engler. There's nobody who would fit that role better than Mr. Engler. It's an honor and a pleasure. And I, too, am proud to say I was a student of yours, but also a friend. And I think that's probably how most students, even if they didn't have the opportunity to be with you in other ways outside the classroom, they would describe, I'm proud to say I'm a student and a friend.
Thank you.
And that's what made him a great teacher.
And I've been a colleague of Dale's and also of yours. When you first
True.
came to the district in the busing department,
Yeah.
you and I worked a lot together with the computer programs.
That's because I needed a lot of help, that's
No,
why.
I think we put a few refinements in it.
True.
Because it didn't
Yeah.
do some things that you wanted done, and
Yeah.
reordering the bus stops, et cetera, and
Right.
we took care of your needs.
Yes, you did. Yep. All righty, guys. Well, listen, thank you so much. What a pleasure. And this will, as Mr. Kagi said, obviously you'll have a chance to see this on Warrior TV, but also go to the school district website and at Southern York County School District, but www.syc.org, and you can go to the YouTube site and make sure you catch this, because I know you'll want to get that 3 minutes related to the number 61 and try to, I want to follow it. I'm going to sit up at night until I have that down and make sure I can repeat that.
If you're watching this first, you might want to also watch the commencement
Okay.
and see if you can figure out what the 61s are before I get to them.
Alrighty. So again, for Mr. Mark Rill, we appreciate all he does as our coordinator of marketing and public information, and all he does for Warrior TV. And thank you so much for. I say this all the time. We're so lucky in our community that we have folks who support public education, and we appreciate that very much. And thank you for your interest. So for Mr. Dale Kagi, and Mr. Darryl Engler, I'm Wayne McCullough saying I'll see you next time.